My name is Alex. My older brother, Mark, was my best friend for my entire life. We shared a room, secrets, and dreams. I thought nothing could break our bond. Then he met Clara. She was beautiful and smart, but she changed him. Slowly, our movie nights ended. Our phone calls became short. He was always too busy with her. I felt him slipping away, but I never thought it would go this far. I found out about his wedding by accident. I was scrolling through social media on a boring Tuesday. A photo popped up. It was Mark and Clara, all smiles. The caption read, "So excited to marry my soulmate next month." My heart dropped into my stomach. The wedding was in 4 weeks, and I had not received an invitation. I stared at my phone screen, my hands feeling cold. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe my invitation got lost in the mail. I decided to call Mark directly. The phone rang for a long time before he finally picked up. "Hey, Alex," he said. His voice sounded flat, not like his usual cheerful self. I took a deep breath. "Hey, Mark. I saw your post online about the wedding. Congratulations." There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear him breathing. "Thanks," he said quietly. Another silence filled the space between us. I was just wondering. I continued, my voice shaking a little. "I haven't got my invitation yet. Should I be worried about the mail?" Mark cleared his throat. He sounded uncomfortable. "Alex, listen, about the wedding." My grip on the phone tightened. I knew what was coming. I could feel it. "Clara and I have been talking," he said. "And, well, we decided to keep the guest list really small. Just immediate family and our closest friends." I felt a wave of relief. "But I am your immediate family. I'm your only brother." There was another painful silence. "It's not that simple, Alex," Mark whispered. I could barely hear him. "Clara, she doesn't think you two get along. She feels you don't support our relationship. She doesn't want any tension on our big day." The words hit me like a physical blow. "She doesn't want me there?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "It's not like that," Mark said quickly, but he didn't sound convincing. "She just wants everything to be perfect, and she thinks you being there might complicate things." I felt a hot anger rise in my chest. "And you agree with her? You're my brother. You're just going to let her uninvite me from your wedding?" Mark didn't answer right away. I heard him sigh deeply. "Alex, please try to understand. This is my future wife. I have to support her decisions. It's her day, too." In that moment, I knew it wasn't just Clara's decision. He had agreed to it. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice cracking. "After everything, you're choosing her over me? You're not just letting her come between us. You're helping her do it." "It's not a choice, Alex. It's about keeping the peace," Mark argued, but his words were weak. I felt a deep sadness wash over me, replacing the anger. The brother I knew was gone. He had been replaced by this stranger who was too afraid to stand up for his own family. "Okay," I said softly. "I understand. Have a great life, Mark." I ended the call before he could respond. I put my phone down and stared at the wall. The silence in my apartment was deafening. For the next few weeks, I felt lost. I was hurt and incredibly angry. My own brother had exiled me from one of the most important days of his life. My parents called me. They were upset, but they said they didn't want to cause a scene. They told me to be the bigger person. That just made me angrier. Why did I have to be the bigger person when I was the one who was wronged? I thought about crashing the wedding. I imagined standing up and objecting. But that felt childish and dramatic. I needed to do something smarter. Something that would make them see how wrong they were, without me having to say a word. Then I remembered our grandfather, Leo. Grandpa Leo was the coolest person I knew. He was a world traveler and a collector of amazing things. When he passed away, he left me and Mark each a special item. He left Mark his fancy, expensive gold watch. He left me his old, heavy trunk. Everyone thought Mark got the better deal. The watch was worth thousands of dollars. My trunk was full of what they called junk, old maps, trinkets, and dusty books. I had never really looked through it properly. I was too busy being disappointed. But now, with all this free time, I decided to finally open it. The trunk smelled like old paper and adventure. I pulled out folded maps from countries I'd never heard of. There were small carved animals, a compass, and a stack of my grandpa's old journals. Underneath it all, at the very bottom, was a long, flat wooden case. It was locked. My curiosity was on fire. What was inside? I searched through the trunk again and found a small, rusty key taped to the underside of the lid. My hands shook as I fit the key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying click. I lifted the lid slowly. Inside, resting on faded velvet, was a stunning sword. It wasn't a pirate sword. It was elegant and ancient, with a jewel hilt. Alongside the sword was a single piece of paper. It was a letter from my grandfather. My heart pounded as I read his familiar handwriting. My dearest Alex, it began, "If you are reading this, you have finally looked past the surface. This trunk holds my real treasure. The watch I gave Mark will tell him the time, but this sword will show you your path. It is a ceremonial blade from the kingdom of Sajar, given to me for a great service. It is priceless. Do not sell it. Its value is in its history. Use its story to build your own. Remember, the flashiest treasure is not always the most valuable. Love, Grandpa Leo." I held the sword carefully. It was heavy and real, a priceless ceremonial sword. I researched the kingdom of Sajar online. It was a real small kingdom in the mountains, famous for its artifacts. This sword was a national treasure. An idea began to form in my mind. A powerful, perfect idea. The wedding was in 2 weeks. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to crash the wedding. I was going to do something much better. I contacted a historian at the local museum, a Dr. Evans. I sent her pictures of the sword and the letter. She replied within an hour, her email full of excitement. Dr. Evans confirmed everything. The sword was indeed a lost artifact from Sajar. The kingdom had been searching for it for decades. She said it was a monumental historical find. The cultural minister of Sajar himself was coming to the city next month. They wanted to see it. My idea became crystal clear. I would not be at my brother's wedding, but everyone there would be talking about me. I would upstage their perfect day without even being in the room. I called a reporter I knew from college, Maya. I told her I had a big story. She was intrigued immediately. The day of the wedding arrived. I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt a calm determination. While Mark and Clara were getting ready, I was getting ready too. I put on my best suit. I wasn't going to the wedding. I was going to the museum. Dr. Evans had arranged a small, private viewing ceremony. Maya, the reporter, was there with a photographer. The cultural minister from Sajar, a man named Kaido, was there too. He was dressed in beautiful, traditional clothes. He shook my hand with tears in his eyes. He thanked me for returning a piece of his country's soul. At the wedding venue, the ceremony was about to start. My parents were seated in the front row, looking sad. I knew they were thinking of me. Mark stood at the altar, looking nervous. He kept glancing toward the door, as if hoping I would show up. Clara looked beautiful, but her smile seemed tight. The music began to play. Everyone stood up. The wedding march started. It was the moment they had been waiting for. At that exact same moment, at the museum, I was handing the sword over to Minister Kaido. The camera flashes were blinding. Back at the wedding, the reception was in full swing. People were eating, drinking, and dancing. My brother and his new wife were making the rounds, greeting their guests. My cousin, Jessica, was at the wedding. She was one of the few family members who thought my exclusion was cruel. She was on her phone, scrolling through social media. Her eyes went wide. She saw Maya's article. The headline was huge. Local man returns Lost Kingdom's treasure, snubbed by family on wedding day. There was a picture of me smiling, holding the sword with Minister Kaido. Jessica couldn't believe it. She showed the article to her mom, my Aunt Susan. Aunt Susan's gasp was loud enough to make people turn their heads. She showed it to my parents. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. My dad's face turned pale. A low murmur started to spread through the tables. "Did you see this? Is that Alex? He found a national treasure? He wasn't invited?" The whispers grew louder. The wedding was no longer about the bride and groom. It was about the mysterious, heroic brother who was not there. Clara noticed a change in the room. The happy noise had been replaced by hushed, excited whispers. People were looking at their phones, not at her. She saw a group of her friends huddled together, staring at a screen. She walked over, her smile forced. "What's so interesting?" she asked. One of her friends looked up, her face a mixture of pity and shock. "It's your brother-in-law, Alex. He's on the news. He just returned some ancient sword to a king. Look." She turned the phone toward Clara. Clara's smile vanished completely. Mark was at the bar when my dad found him. My dad didn't say a word. He just held out his phone with the article open. Mark read the headline. He scrolled through the pictures. He saw me, looking happier and more fulfilled than I had in years. He read about the sword, its history, and how Grandpa Leo had left it to me. The article mentioned that I was not at my own brother's wedding because the bride did not want me there. Mark's face fell. He looked over at Clara, who was storming toward him, her face red with anger. "This is your fault." Clara hissed at Mark, trying to keep her voice low. "Your stupid brother did this to ruin my wedding. He planned this." Mark looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, he saw the selfishness he had been ignoring. "He didn't ruin anything, Clara," Mark said, his voice tired. "He just lived his life. We're the ones who told him he couldn't be part of ours." Clara stared at him in disbelief. "How can you defend him? He humiliated us." Mark shook his head. "No, we humiliated ourselves when we didn't invite him. He just showed everyone what we did." The party atmosphere was completely gone. The band played, but no one was dancing. Guests were either leaving early or gathered in small groups, talking about the news story. My parents came over Mark. My mom was crying. "We never should have allowed this," she said. "We should have insisted Alex be here. We failed him." My dad put his arm around her, his own eyes wet. "Your grandfather left him a king's ransom, and we treated him like a beggar." Mark felt ashamed so deep it made him sick. He had lost something much more valuable than a sword. The next day, my phone was blowing up. Messages from family and friends poured in. They all praised me for what I did. They called me a hero. They said they were sorry about the wedding. I didn't reply to most of them. I felt at peace. I had honored my grandfather's legacy. I had stood up for myself without screaming or fighting. I was drinking coffee in my quiet apartment when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. It was Mark. He was still wearing his clothes from the day before. He looked exhausted. I opened the door slowly. We stood there, staring at each other for a long moment. "Can I come in?" he finally asked, his voice rough. I stepped aside and let him in. He walked into my living room and saw Grandpa Leo's trunk, now empty. "I saw the news," he said, not looking at me. Everyone saw it. I didn't say anything. I just waited. He turned to me, and his eyes were full of tears. "Alex, I am so sorry. I was a coward. I was so worried about making Clara happy that I forgot about my own brother. I forgot about you." His apology was real. I could feel it. All my anger started to melt away. He was still my brother. "The sword was amazing," he said, almost smiling. "Grandpa Leo would be so proud of you. He always knew you were the one who understood real value." I nodded. "He left me a treasure, but you helped me see it." I said, "If you had invited me to the wedding, I probably never would have opened that trunk." Mark let out a sad laugh. "So I did you a favor?" "No," I said firmly. "You hurt me deeply, but I chose to do something good with that hurt." We talked for a long time. He told me about the wedding falling apart. He said he and Clara had a huge fight after they left the reception. She was staying with her parents. He said he didn't know if his marriage would survive this. I felt a little bad for him, but I also knew he had made his choices. "I need to make this right," Mark said. "I don't know how, but I will. You can start by being my brother again," I told him. That's all I ever wanted. He promised he would. For the first time in a year, I believed him. A few weeks later, things were different. Mark was living in a small apartment. He and Clara were separated. He came over to my place every weekend. We watched movies and ordered pizza, just like old times. He was trying to find his way back to himself. The museum held a big public exhibition for the Sajar sword. They gave me a special medal and a reward of $50,000 for returning it. I didn't need the money, but it was a nice bonus. I used some of it to take Mark on a trip to visit some of the places on Grandpa Leo's old maps. That trip was our new beginning. We weren't the same brothers we were before Clara, and that was okay. We were better. We were honest with each other. I learned that sometimes the deepest hurts can lead you to your greatest treasures. My brother's wedding was the worst day of my life, but it was also the start of my new life. I found my grandfather's legacy, my own strength, and I found my brother again. And in the end, that was worth more than any invitation. If you made it this far, you understand what I learned. Respect is non-negotiable. My worth was never defined by my brother's wedding invitation or his wife's opinion of me. For a while, I felt invisible, pushed out of my own family. But my grandfather's trunk taught me a powerful lesson. The most valuable treasures are often hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. My story proves that silence can be your sharpest weapon, and patience can be your greatest power. I didn't need to scream or crash the wedding to be seen. I simply had to honor my own legacy. By choosing my path, I turned my humiliation into a triumph that echoed louder than any speech. So remember this. Your silence doesn't make you weak. Your boundaries don't make you difficult. Your survival makes you extraordinary. Your worth was never in question. It was only ever waiting for you to remember it. Have you ever had to prove your worth to a family that underestimated you? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.